Hello again. This is Dr. Shoes, and this is our lesson on dividing monomials. If you thought yesterday was fun, today is going to be super fun. So let's go ahead and get started. The first property we're going to study today is the quotient of powers property, and you'll notice this is very similar to the product of powers property that we started with yesterday, but of course this is dividing instead of multiplying. And once again, I think you're going to quickly see that there are shortcuts, but at first we're going to do it the mathematical way. So in this first problem we have 8 to the 10th power divided by 8 to the 4th power. And so what we're going to do first here is expand this. So 8 to the 10th is really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 eighths all being multiplied by each other. And that's being divided by 8 to the 4th, which is 4 eighths being multiplied by each other. And as we've been studying all year, when you have something divided by itself, which is what this line really means, right? It really means divided by. If you have 8 divided by 8, that really becomes 1, and 1 times anything is itself, so we can really cancel that one out. We can also cancel this one out, and this one out. So what we find now is what's left. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 eighths on the top, and nothing on the bottom. And of course, 6 eighths multiplied by each other is the same as 8 to the 6th power. So of all you smart ones out there, you're probably realizing, hey, Shoes, wait a minute. I already have the rule. 8 to the 10th divided by 8 to the 4th is 8 to the 6th. And you are right, but let's again go ahead and just do one more the right way. So in this problem I have x to the 5th, which is 5 x's. All of that divided by 7 x's. And once again, anything divided by itself equals 1, and 1 times anything is itself, which means it's legal mathematically for us to cancel it out. And so when we do that, what we find is all that's left on top is nothing, or really a 1. And what's left on the bottom is an x times an x, which is the same as x squared. And for those of you who are really on top of your game, you'll also know there's another way we could rewrite that, x to the negative 2. And if you want to use that rule that you're already figuring out, you will see that x to the 5th over x to the 7th, or divided by x to the 7th, is the same as x to the negative 2. Let's go ahead and do 2 more, and then I'm going to set you on your own here. Actually, we'll just do one more together first. In this first problem, what I'm asking you to do is really 2 steps, one from yesterday and one from today. So we have a multiplication problem in the numerator, 3 to the 3rd times 3 to the 5th. And if you remember our property of powers property, you remember that the shortcut is to add the exponents. So that's going to become 3 to the 8th, now divided by 3 to the 6th. And of course, for all of you that are figuring out the shortcut, when we divide, or we have a quotient of powers property, the shortcut is to subtract. So of course, 8 minus 6 is 2, and the answer here is 3 squared. So knowing that, I'd love you to try this problem on your own. So please pause the video, solve the answer, and when you're done, press play to see if you have it done correctly. Okay, let's go ahead and do this first problem. I'm going to do it the shortcut way as well as the long way, so just bear with me. If we did it the long way, we would have 3 x's on top, 5 y's, and 2 z's. And on the bottom, we would have 2 x's, 7 y's, and also 2 z's. And now I'm going to use my rule here and cancel out things that are the same. And let's see what we have left. Looks like we have 1 x left on the top and nothing else, so that's going to be an x. In the denominator, the only thing we have left are 2 y's, which become y squared. So now let's go ahead and rewrite that using negative exponents. That would be rewritten as x times y to the negative 2. And now let's use our shortcut and see if we could have figured it out that way as well. Using the shortcut, if you look at just the x's, 3 minus 2 of course is 1, and that is what we got over here in the answer. If you look at the y's, 5 minus 7 is negative 2, and again, that's what we got over here. And if we look at the z's, 2 minus 2 is 0, anything to the 0 power is 1. 1 times anything is itself. So those really just cancel out, which is why it's not in our answer. So if you're thinking that the shortcut works, you're right. And the shortcut for the quotient of power properties is that you can subtract. And I've written that rule right down here as a to the m divided by a to the n is the same as a to the m minus n. And notice I have this little note here that a cannot be 0 because we know that you can never have 0 in a denominator, or it makes it a not real number, which we have not learned about yet. So let's go ahead to the next property, which is the power of a quotient property. And I apologize, I did not write this correctly. These need some parentheses, which I wasn't able to do on the PowerPoint. So the rule for this is basically that when you have x over y, the whole thing cubed, you should agree that that means x over y times x over y times x over y. And now that I have that, using the rule of multiplying fractions, it's numerator times numerator times numerator, which would become x cubed. And on the bottom, denominator times denominator, which would become y cubed. So when you take a fraction, or a quotient, and you take it to a power, both the numerator and the denominator have to be raised to that power. So keeping that in mind, let's go ahead and do this next one. I have 4x squared all cubed. So first I'm going to take this 4 and I'm going to cube it. So 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 4 is 64. And now I'm going to take x squared and cube it. And if you remember our rule yesterday of raising a product to a power, you have to multiply the exponents. So that's going to become x to the 6th. On the bottom, I have 5 to the 3rd power, which is 125, and y to the 1st power raised to the 3rd power becomes y to the 3rd. So let's go ahead and do 2 more problems like that. Again, I apologize for writing my parentheses in so late. So we're ready for the next problem here. Why don't you go ahead and try these 2 on your own, press pause, and when you've completed the problems, press play and we'll go over the answers. Alright, welcome back. In this first problem, we're going to take this numerator and raise it to the 2nd power. So x squared squared becomes x to the 4th. All of that over 4y squared. So 4 squared is 16. Y to the 1st squared becomes y squared. So hopefully that's the answer that you got as well. In this next problem, it's a little tricky because we have 2 things going on here. So what I'm going to suggest, whoops, sorry about that. Let's see if I can get this back. What I'm going to suggest we do is, sorry about that, is to actually just deal with this fraction first. Then we will deal with this one, okay? So let's take 2s and cube it. That's going to become 8s cubed. Then let's take 3t and cube it. That's going to become 9t cubed. And then I need to multiply that whole thing times t to the 5th over 16. And based on what you've learned, we can just multiply top times top and then bottom times bottom. So let's go ahead and do that. That's going to give us, oops, sorry, 8s cubed t to the 5th all over 9 times 16, get out my handy-dandy calculator here. 9 times 16 is 144, so over 144 t cubed. But you've also learned today the product quotient, which means we can reduce these t's. We can simplify them a little bit. We can also simplify the numbers. 8 and 144 are both divisible by 8. So the 8 cancels. 144 divided by 8 is 18. So I'm going to be left with s cubed on the top, t squared left on the top, and on the bottom I'm just going to be left with 18. And the way I got that is the 8 and the 144 simply reduce like a normal fraction. There's an s cubed on the top, but no s cubed on the bottom, so that's just going to stay on the top. And here I have a t to the 5th over t to the 3rd, and we learned the shortcut to subtract, so 5 minus 3 is a 2. And that's how I got this final answer of s cubed t squared all over 18. And at the bottom here, I know I have unfortunately written over top of it, but you can see I have the rule here for you. A over b to the m power is the same as a to the m over b to the m, and again noting that b can't be 0 because we all know we can't divide by 0. So we've learned a lot today, and I thought we'd do one last problem on our own and then check it. So please pause the video, Complete this problem, and when you're finished, press play to check your answer. Okay, welcome back. As I mentioned earlier, when you have two of these that you have to deal with, I like to deal with each one individually and then multiply the two together. So let's first just deal with that first fraction right here. And I can rewrite this as this whole thing cubed over this whole thing cubed. So let's go ahead and do that. So, doesn't seem to want to erase for me. If I look at the first term, this 3, and I cube it, I of course would get 27. And x cubed cubed becomes x to the 9th, and y to the first cubed becomes y to the 3rd. All of that over x squared cubed, which becomes x to the 6th. Now, according to the rules that we learned today, you can simplify this because they have the same base, and the shortcut is to subtract the exponents. So for this first fraction, you'd be left with 27 x to the 3rd, y to the 3rd, because of course 9 minus 6 is just 3. So that's how that first fraction simplifies. What I now want to do is simplify this second fraction, and then I'm going to multiply the two answers. So let's go ahead and simplify that. Y squared squared becomes y to the 4th, x to the 4th squared becomes x to the 8th, 5 squared becomes 25, and y to the 1st squared becomes y squared. And again, based on what you've learned today, you know that you can reduce this y and this y because they have the same base, and the shortcut is 4 minus 2 is 2. So that's going to leave me with x to the 8th power y squared all over 25. And now what I can do is multiply these two fractions and see what I get. So when I multiply, on the top I would get 27 x to the 11th, y to the 5th, all over 25. And I always just want to double check to make sure I can't reduce anything. So when I look at these numbers, 27 and 25 can't be reduced. There's an x on top, no x on the bottom, y on top, no y on the bottom. So this is the final answer. I hope that helps. You should be ready for the worksheet now. Have a good day.